I've spoken about this issue in the past. It's been a topic I've really become sick of hearing, but only because I think it deserves an analytical approach rather than an emotional one. So let me preface this by saying I'm not a fan of Trump. I'm not a fan of uh, Obama or any of the recent Democrats. I think they both follow the same philosophy, that of appeasing corporations, continuing wars, ignoring the gap between the middle class and, or rather, the upper class and every other lower group. Let me say hello to Dirk. But that being said, I have almost been pushed into this position where I have to keep batting away suggestions that are made that Trump's he's approaching his last days. He's about to get out of there. I've had to, unfortunately, as someone who's not a fan of his, go and rebuke those who probably are closer to me politically, but are not thinking about this from the consensus of facts and what we know. So, for example, a lot of people that I've seen when the impeachment issue gets mentioned, they immediately go into this idea like there's this disconnect between impeachment and removal from office. So, for example, um, if Trump were impeached, that does not mean he'd get removed from office. Let me see what Dirk is saying. The tweets he's making more shocking. None of us want Pence to take his. Oh, we're going to get into that in a few moments. But again, the point is, you have people who are calling for impeachment without any definition of how to actually remove the person from office, even if that process begins. During the last quote unquote successful impeachment or a successful attempted impeachment, which was with Clinton, 2/3 of the Senate were required to vote the president out of power, or out of office rather. And as we're currently sitting here, both the Democrats and Republicans have what, barely half of the chamber, and in both their cases, one has 51, the other one has 49. It's a very skewed number to where neither side really um, can claim a definitive majority. It's just slightly more, almost a tie. Uh, and what you also have to understand is that when you look at Clinton's impeachment, there were people who voted along party lines, or rather, both parties voted along party lines overwhelmingly. I think there were about maybe 5 Republicans that switched over to not remove him from office. And if you look at most of the Senate votes, you have that kind of same thing going where you get a tax bill, it's like 48-51. The point is, we live in a very partisan era that's been going around for decades. We're talking about 1999, and this still is in effect where parties vote along the party line. So I have there's basically, unless 15 or 16 or however many Republicans swap over and just vote with all the Democrats to get rid of him, Trump is there no matter what he does. Um, and also, we have this thing about not wanting to acknowledge the bigger elephant in the room, which is the catastrophe of what will happen after he leaves. See, a lot of the people who are calling for him to get removed, like a certain California congresswoman who Trump has called a low IQ individual. We know, I think you know what I'm talking about. They're not here necessarily to make these comments to start something that could actually be plausible. So you had Dirk mention earlier. I think that was, I'm pretty sure Dirk said, yeah, make the comments about Pence and not wanting him to take over. Well, I guarantee if Dirk went down his street and asked maybe 10 or 15, just asked the nearest 10 or 15 people who call themselves backing Trump's impeachment what their position is on Pence, they'd probably start drooling at the mouth, because there is this thing of having a certain level of short-sightedness, if that's even a word, when it comes to political aims and goals. Oh, I got rid of this person, but is the person replacing him any better? And one of the things that's never made sense to me with the Democrats, at least it didn't initially, was why would you want to remove a president from office if the person that is going to replace them is the exact same, if not worse, as defined by your positions. But suddenly I thought about their anger at the Russian, the Russian press conference. That's actually, it was really sad. I've been rooting for O'Rourke, the guy challenging Cruz in the Texas Senate race, and he called for Trump's impeachment after the Putin conference. And I looked at that computer screen in disbelief because I thought to myself, you're talking about the difference between having global conflicts with another world power, and this is something that all these liberals were hopping on Trump for exacerbating with North Korea. Now they're complaining about Iran, but when he acts friendly toward the Russian leader, it's suddenly a problem. It was ridiculous to me. But when I looked at that, I thought to myself, why are you so upset? Yeah, Alfonso, we know that. Why are you so upset with him while not going after Pence or any of his cabinet members? It kind of makes a little bit of sense with the cabinet members because most of them, we don't know the full extent of their views outside of their department. But when I thought about it, I said, they're going after Trump for calling somebody out of their name. They're going after him for lack of social grace. When that becomes the principal reason for why you want to remove someone from office and replace them with another person who is, in terms of policy, an exact replica, that should let you know that the Democrats who are pushing for this are grandstanding and, to put it bluntly, full of crap. And it saddens me that they cloak themselves in these issues. Oh, look at this, the family separation policy. Oh, look at what he did with the ban on the Muslim majority countries. I thought to myself, you really think that if you get rid of Trump, these things are just going to disappear? Because remember, there is such a thing called the presidential line of succession, and what that entails is that there are a list of people who, if something happens to whoever the president is at that time, will take over and be positioned. That list has about maybe 10 or 15 names on there. And the name at the top is the current vice president, who we actually do have some recollection of the views of. A guy who believes in, gay shock therapy, cure the homosexuals with the Pikachu attack. It would do the Thunderbolt. But, I mock that because it's a ridiculous concept, but it would be a scary concept if implemented, which is something that becomes all the more plausible if he gets into power. Something that liberals and just Democrats in general have been pushing for in their rhetoric for the last year and a half. And one of the things that inspired me to speak about it again, because I like to let time just keep passing and see if anything changes, although I'm convinced that it wasn't, that's why you have the title that's there, is I wanted to see how many of these predictions I could spot and just find in like the archive, dig up and see what happens with them. Now there's a TYT video. It came out. Oh, I'm not even gonna say when it came out. It was regarding the belief by Cenk Uygur, the main host of TYT, that Trump would resign in disgrace soon. That's actually the title of it, and that came out back in August. He predicted that as a result of the Unite the Right rally and his inability to get along with people in his own party, Trump would not make 18 months. And would you like to guess how many months it's been since Trump's been in office? Count them. 12 from last year, another 7 this year. So bottom line is it's past that time and he's still here. Dirk says, even though the vids and photos of the child cancer were during Obama's term. Yeah, well, Dirk, here's the thing. Those camps and all that nasty stuff when it comes to immigration has its origins with, other administrations such as Obama's. And you can infer that if Pence were to get in office, you would have the same thing. These people are fully aware of the fact that Trump didn't just arrive and all of a sudden all this horrible stuff started happening. And if anything, it exposed a lot of these awful things. But they want you to stop thinking about policy. They want you to get so caught up in, oh, he said this thing about this one congressman and this one journalist got searched. They want you to think entirely of that and erase from your mind the fact that whoever they replace him with, thanks to that line of succession, is going to just do the exact same thing. And it's disturbing that I can almost see every time I think of the scenario of Trump actually being removed from office. I always think about Pence and how people would go about perceiving him, but also how people would just look at the Democrats and say, "You got rid of Trump so that you could put someone in office who's much more competent at getting what they want and whose agenda is backwards as far as your own belief system and our belief system was concerned." They might it might be a game of spot the difference. Okay, Dirk is, I don't know if he went to sleep or something. Oh, I didn't respond to that question. Do you think um from what I heard, there was proof that the Russians tried to meddle with the election, but it was unsuccessful. I don't know if there's any proof of Trump doing things relating to them, but my issue with all of this stuff has been the fact that the U.S. itself has been involved with screwing up democracy, and then all of a sudden now it wants to go after Russia for doing something that it's been involved with in the past. Um, I don't know. I think Dirk might be familiar with it. The Iran scenario with where basically during the Eisenhower administration back in the early, I think it was 53, the U.S. got rid of the democratically elected leader of Iran and put in the Shah so that we could get their oil with much more ease. But these are the same people who now, decades later, oh my God, democracy's so important. Democracy's such a big deal to us. The same people who had their last president, the one that suddenly has become a darling angel since he left office 18 months ago, jail journalists with the Espionage Act, are telling me about Trump's undermining of democracy and the dictatorship and all this other nonsense. Okay. Dirk says Trump would never be taken out of office because of his ego or something. I think what you're, and I'm not trying to play the interpretation game, but you're saying that he wouldn't resign because of his ego, right? I just want to make sure I'm getting you correct, Dirk. They ran in there and took everything from the U.S., plotting other leaders. Mm-hmm. There's another point that was on my mind and of why this whole period of hoping something bad happens to him has been so pointless to me. And it's really it kind of, while it's been funny to watch people be incorrect about their predictions of, oh, he'll be out next year, he'll be out in a few weeks, he'll be out this by this time of summer. The scariest thing is that a lot of people who have this ill will and anger toward him, if you ask them what he's done that's been bad, they can name examples, but a lot of them seem to either turn a blind eye or be unaware of the fact that many of his policies were in effect before he took office and would be in effect if he were removed from office, as according to our own line of succession. Oh, well, they wish bodily harm on him in some cases. I actually read a comment just today, and I screenshotted it, where someone was saying, why did this one recently deceased person have to pass? Why couldn't it have been Trump? They said that in this comment. And when you read stuff like that, it really is disturbing. Why does he seem? Does he have? You might have to ask his physician, the White House doctor that he tried to make the Veteran Affairs Secretary before he withdrew his name. Well, Dirk, don't get too upset about it. It's usually just worthless jabber online, but it sometimes gets a little disturbing to think about how people's minds work. And it's been really uncomfortable to just sit here and watch with great repetition individuals, because I like to read and write. I like to pay attention to what is being said around me. And one of the repeat narratives I've been getting from a lot of these progressive candidates I like is impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. For example, I think Dirk, you're familiar with the Ocasio Cortez scenario and how I want to do something just relating to her. I look at her positions, I say, wow, this is someone that's really in line with what I'm into. And then all of a sudden I read her favoring Trump's impeachment, and I just, do this. Um, then I'm supporting O'Rourke in Texas, and after that Putin press conference, he starts talking about Trump should be impeached for that. And I just do this. TYT has all of its problems, but in cases where they actually have facts are all right. I'm watching their stuff last year, and they talk about Trump getting impeached 7 months into being in office, and just like this, because I know this game. If you're part of someone's team, you're going to do whatever it takes to excuse whatever illegal practices that person has done, and then go after someone else for doing something of a similar lack of merit. Case in point, you didn't see the Democrats trying to, go after and put Hillary in prison for using the emails with a server that wasn't intended for that. And if it had been Trump who had done something like that, if he had been Secretary of State or in some other position to have classified documents, they would have lost their minds. It would have been, like some kind of major controversy just because of who he was rather than the actions that were committed. How does he get so many? Okay, that's unrelated to anything. Skipping that. Let's see. Where did Wicked Jester go? He just vanished. He says hello and then he exits. Yeah. I just want to keep reminding people of what it actually takes to get impeached, and it's really disturbing. Or even before that, Dirk, are you talking about the 2016 Democratic primaries rigging? Shh, be very, very quiet. You're speaking in territory that's not intended to be gone into. But one of the things that I wish people would do, if you want to support Trump getting impeached, whatever, but know what it takes for it to not only happen but be successful. You have states where it seems like no matter if so long as they're from a certain party, they can just get away with doing nothing of any noteworthiness, of any good. And a lot of those Senate elections right now, such as the one in Mississippi with a Republican who, if you asked most of the people in that state, what has he done, is a perfect example of a vote that the Democrats, if they were serious about actually, impeaching Trump, could try to get if by, winning that seat. But they're not making any efforts to do that because they want to live in this fantasy world where they can just keep calling for Trump to resign or get impeached. 2 more years pass, and then we'll get a presidential election where he'll probably win, and then we'll go back to the same thing for another 4 years. Dirk says cannot be bought up or even thought of maybe in a documentary made 30 years from now. Yeah, apparently. You have to play hush hush on that issue. Ize says, do you think the Trump administration is as evil as the Bush era? I don't know. Has Trump launched us into the longest war in American history? Has he signed the Patriot Act and thereby violated our civil liberties and basically told the Fourth Amendment to go jump off a cliff? Has he invaded the wrong country after the worst terrorist attack in the country's history, in the U.S.'s history? Like I said, if I wanted to list all the bad things Trump has done, I could, be here all day. But, if we're going off of what set the precedent for bad things that happened or have had some lasting effect, it still has not occurred yet. Other than maybe that tax bill, and even then, that still is something that gradually could go away. But it's going to take a long time. Dirk says Mississippi can get the spot. Yeah, well, I'm just saying just like in my state. You have a terrible senator who's right-wing, even though she calls herself a Democrat. And because of what her label is, people will go out and vote for her. Is it right? No. Is it smart? No. They just do it. And to her fairness, she'll probably vote for Trump's impeachment were it to come up. But the Democrats still don't even have more than just approaching half of the chamber when they need 2/3 of the vote to get rid of him in the Senate, or to actually prevail in their voting. But you see them sitting there and going, oh man, we're going to try to win these seats. we're gonna have this plot for that seat. No, the only seats I've seen them make any serious effort toward is the one in Tennessee and maybe the one in Arizona. And the only reason they're winning the one in Tennessee is because Corker, the guy currently on it, is stepping down, and they have this other this Democrat who was popular in that state, and he's running against this woman who is practically a maniac. So that takes a lot of effort. They almost lost to Moore after those girls came forward. That's another story. They have no platform to win, and it seems like the scariest thing to them is waking up and saying, "Hey, if we want to get Trump out of here or pass anything or just do something of any remembrance or worthfulness, we're gonna need to have more seats." But they don't think that way. It's just rhetoric, 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 talk, talk, talk. But let's not walk the walk. And the same thing could be said about the seat in Arizona, where Flake's retiring. They have a Democrat who's winning in those polls too, but that still is coming at a time when they stand to lose the seat in Mississippi with Heitkamp, or Missouri rather, the seat in West Virginia with Manchin. There's loads of things that can happen for both sides, and they really are in a scenario where they just have to wait. They can't keep playing this game of let's wish for this to happen and then we'll wake up and it'll be better tomorrow, and making these grandstanding efforts and convincing people that they care, when if they were serious about changing the way things are, they would try to impeach obviously Pence first, but many of those cabinet members would be gotten rid of as well, or wouldn't have even been able to take office. I can't think of too many Trump nominees for secretary that have been stalled to where they just weren't able to get through. Maybe two or three. So if they can't even stop that, how can I believe they would, even if having the votes, be capable of pulling off an impeachment? And if they think Trump is so egotistical, why would he resign? Just none of it makes any sense. None of it is designed to present a plausible path. It's just, ugh. We'll be after three. Yeah. That 3 California thing didn't make the ballot, Dirk, and I'm glad. It was dumb. So I want to thank those who checked this out. I especially want to thank Dirk for being the most prolific commenter. He seems to pull through when everybody else is dispatched, and I will have something else up tomorrow. So I appreciate it and have a good day.